Welcome back to Unfold Data Science, guys. In this video I am going to show you a end-to-end vector database powered RAG pipeline. I am going to explain you how data is stored in VectorDB, how the matching is happening, and the triangle that defines the three important components of RAG. Let's start without any delay. So guys, whenever you hear of the terminology RAG, you should always think about a triangle. In a RAG, there are typically three parties or three components. Okay, so this is your first component, this is your second component, and this is your third component. Now, in an interview, they will try to confuse you, but please try to understand. Any RAG, this is how it works. So first of all, there will be a user like you and me. User will go and write the query. Fine. So this component or this part is your user part. The second important part of your RAG architecture is something known as a knowledge source. Knowledge source could be a document, but most common knowledge source is something known as a vector database. Okay, so I am writing here KS. KS stands for knowledge source. You can also think this as vector database. Okay, I am going to tell you what is vector database in a moment. But first think that this is a vector database. Now this is your second important component of your RAG architecture. And then third important component of your RAG architecture is something known as large language models or LLMs. So if you see here guys, this part LLM is used for reasoning. Okay, so whenever you are building an AI powered application, you will need LLM for reasoning. But what for vector databases or knowledge source is used? This is used for storage. And if somebody asks you what is a typical flow of RAG, please remember, don't confuse on this because many students ask me the same question. So RAG flow is always like this. User will ask query, it will go to the knowledge source, then user query plus the answer from the knowledge source. Both of that will go to the LLM, and then LLM will give you the response back. So please remember, this is step 1, this is step 2, and this is step 3. Now this is your entire architecture of RAG. Whichever flavor of RAG you take, right, this is the high level architecture that it will take. But what I want you to understand as part of this session today is, you should understand how this storage happens and how the things work internally. And for that, we will go and see how data is stored in a vector database, and when we run our application, then how the matching happens. But before that, let me show you the application I am trying to build here. So I will go to my Visual Studio Code, and there is a project I have built. Let me run this project for you first. So I'll say Streamlit run Streamlit app.py, and when I run this, you will see that a front end is getting opened. And in this front end, I can ask few questions. So I will show you now. And after that, I will explain you how this entire project is working. And I'll share the code with you as well. So for example, this is a movie RAG with Weaviate and OpenAI. So this is the vector database I have used, Weaviate. OpenAI is my LLM. As I told you, two components we need in any RAG. Remember, user will need two things. One is a storage, another one is a LLM for reasoning. In our case, we have taken storage as Weaviate VectorDB, OpenAI as a reasoning engine or LLM. Fine. So what it is, for example, if I go and ask here, which movie is about spirits, or let's change it. Let's change it a bit. Which movie is about comedy? Okay, so I'm hitting a basically comedy database, or let's keep it little generic. Let's say, suggest me a good comedy movie. Okay, so I'm asking my system this. Now I want to show you something very interesting here. When I ask this query, right, first of all, what will happen is it will hit the database. As I was telling you, remember this flow, it will hit the database and it will see if there is any information of comedy movie. Now if you see here, I don't know any good comedy movie based on the previous description. This is your RAG answer. Now, very important concept here, guys. It can work with a knowledge source or it can work without a knowledge source, which means it can be a RAG system or it can be not a RAG system. So what I want to show you is when it is not a RAG system, when it is directly talking to large language model, then it can give you another answer as well. So here it says LLM only answer, no vector DB, no context. Please understand these two carefully. This is the answer coming from the RAG. In the RAG, it is saying I do not know any good comedy movie. And without RAG, it is saying in general, generic answer, no vector DB, no context. It is saying if you are looking for a good comedy movie, I recommend this. So a movie it is recommending. Now my question to you is, we are getting answer of all the questions with LLM also. So why do we need a RAG kind of system? Okay, so just pause the video and drop me in comment. Why do you need a RAG? Why do you need a knowledge source? So one answer is basically knowledge source is about data of your organization, data of your company, your private data, etc. But is there something else? Why do you need a RAG? Why can't you manage with LLM only? So just there are many reasons, but you can give me some reasons in the comment as well. Okay, so this is my system. What my system does, my system runs two ways of answering. One is with RAG, one is LLM only. Now let me tell you something interesting here. When this matching happens, when user fires the query, right, user's context or user's query will be compared with data stored in the vector DB, and then the combined context will be passed to the LLM in step 2. So in step 1, how this matching will happen is very important. So I will try to explain you how this matching will happen, and for that we will understand what is a vector DB and how Weaviate works. So let me try to guide you a little bit here. Go to Google and search on Weaviate. This is a vector DB. So the first page you are going to get is this. Come here, it says, let's build together our global community, blah blah blah. So what is Weaviate? So few things it gives you. First is the open source vector database, and as it says, it's an open source vector DB that simplifies the development of AI applications, building vector and hybrid search, easy to connect machine learning model, etc. So how to work with this tool? What you need to do is, you need to first of all go and create an account here, and I'm logged in. So first you can log in, and log in with Google. It is free and it will not ask you any card or anything. You can log in. I am logged into Weaviate here, and if you see my URL here, it says console.weaviate.cloud, which means I'm inside Weaviate Cloud. You can work with Weaviate in two ways. One is local and one is cloud. So both the approaches are here in the documentation. So if I have to show you the documentation, right, Weaviate database docs, etc., Weaviate deployment agents, cloud docs, database docs. So somewhere there will be documentation for both. Quick start tutorial if you go to. So with cloud resources, query agent, how to set up cloud, etc. So you can search for the documentation, but what I want to tell you is the local way of working is quite easy. You can simply run few commands and get that going. I'm trying to show you the cloud Weaviate. Okay, so cloud Weaviate is what I'm trying to show you. When you work with cloud Weaviate, right, what will happen is your processing or your database will get created in the cloud, and the very first step to do that is you should create a cluster. So this is the page where you will land in Weaviate. Go to clusters and click on create a cluster. In this cluster, so my sandbox limit has reached, but what you can do is you can create a sandbox. It will ask you nothing. It will just ask you, as you can see, name of the sandbox, and that's it. You can create a cluster. Just give any name and just create the cluster. In my case, I have created two clusters, as you can see here. One is called Aman Demo, one is called Aman Weaviate. Okay, so what is the meaning of a sandbox? Is basically a virtual machine in cloud where your data will get stored, or which is yours basically. So through an URL you will access that. Now if you want to access this sandbox, you need two things. First thing is this REST endpoint. What you have to do is you have to copy this. Whenever you create a new cluster, right, you will get a REST endpoint. Copy this REST endpoint and put it somewhere in your notepad. That is your step 1. In step 2, you have to go and create an API key. For example, here I have created a key, but I can create one more key. So for example, dummy key, and role you have to give admin and say create key. Once the key is created, just copy it and save it somewhere in notepad. So two things here I am telling you. First, you will come and create a cluster. In that cluster you will get a REST endpoint. That endpoint you save somewhere, and API key you can create and save somewhere. So now you have a URL and you have a API key. Please remember, these two are important things. With these two, programmatically you can access your sandbox or cloud environment. Okay, now this is about access part. Once you can access this, what you can do is you can create some data inside of it, and that data is known as collections. So basically, if you click on collections, right, you can go here and create new collection. Collection means nothing but in vector DB, the way of storing data is by properties. So for example, here you will give name of the collection, here you will give description, here you will give some which column you want to which vectorizer you want to use, and here you can start giving properties. Properties means you can simply think of a row column in a RDBMS system. For example, here you can say ID, the other property could be name, the other property could be employee number. Okay, so you can think of different columns, nothing more than that, and these are called your properties. So this way you can create a collection, but obviously you will not create manually like this, right? So what are the different ways of creating collection? One way of creating collection is you can import a CSV file. So for example, here you can click on this and you can browse files and you can import a file. For example, this 1K website. This 1K website you can simply go and import. So you can say select all. Okay, and there is some data in this and you can say submit. Okay, you can give some names here, collection name, etc. And once you say import, right, let me give some name, my call. Let me see if it is asking for something else. Must start with a capital letter. Okay, fine. Okay, at least one property must be selected for vectorization. So which one you want to vectorize? Vectorize means basically you want to create a vector of that. We are talking about vector database here, right? So I'm saying vectorize this column, content column. Okay, so it will import my data, and once the data is imported, right, I will show you how the data looks like. So data will basically look like little different than RDBMS, but you can think of a row column will be called here properties, and in that properties data will be sitting. For example, URL is first column, domain is second column, title is third column, and content is fourth column. So this is one entry in my data, and these are the data in that. And then in vector I have the embedding of that. Okay, similarly, second data point in vector I have the embedding of that, third data point in the vector I have the embedding of that, and so on and so forth. So I showed you one way of creating collection. Okay, but you can create collection programmatically as well. So you can fill your data programmatically as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you my code where everything I am doing programmatically. Okay, so what all I am doing programmatically? So I showed you a vector database Weaviate, right? So first of all, what I will do is I will create connection with that vector database. Please understand these steps very carefully. And in this connection creation process, I will need two things. What are those two things? One is that URL I showed you, okay, and another thing is that API key that I showed you. These two things you need. Without this you cannot create connection to that cloud sandbox. You need these two things. Fine. First I will create connection, then what I will do is I will create a collection programmatically this time. Okay, not manually, programmatically. Create collection, and then what I will do is I will push some data in that collection. Push data through code, okay, in collection. So when I do this, what will happen is my collection will get created and my knowledge base will get created. This part from to here is part 1 of my project, and this one I am calling create collection. Create collection. Once my collection is created, what I am going to do is I am going to write some steps such that when user sends a query, then it should go and search for the related information in the database. Okay, so the next step will be in program I will match user query match in collection. Okay, so whenever user comes, write some query, it will match in the collection. The second part will be retrieval. So in RAG, R stands for retrieval, right? So I will retrieve, to keep it very simple, I will say get match and prepare context. Okay, get match and prepare context. Once you prepare context, what you are going to do, you are going to send user query plus context, user query plus context to LLM, okay, and then LLM sends the response. In this case LLM will be OpenAI. LLM response. This part from here to here I am calling my RAG part, right? This is what RAG does, right? RAG part. And this is my part 2 of my program, part 2. And when I wrap all these things inside a UI wrapper, Streamlit wrapper basically, that is my third file. So I will put inside a Streamlit wrapper all these things, and I'm going to show you in the front end that I showed you already. But let me walk you through those two major component of the project. So first of all, let me go here in my Visual Studio. So in requirement.txt I have put the packages that I will need. For example, Weaviate Client, OpenAI, Streamlit, .in and Python. And obviously first I will install this. Then I will go and create collection. And as you can see here, import os weaviate.env, because I have stored my, remember your Weaviate URL and API key should be part of your .env. If you have any confusion in .env, please comment me and I'll guide you, okay? But in your .env, URL and API key should be there. Fine. So let me stop this. I will just stop this and I will show you that how this flow is running, okay? And this Weaviate URL and API key will take from basically environment variable, then OpenAI key and OpenAI embedding model again from the environment variable. Then I am checking if the connection parameters are there. If not, it will give an error. And I'm saying a collection name movie, okay? So I'm just taking collection name in a variable. What I'm doing, I'm just creating OpenAI client, and here I'm creating embedding, basically a function I'm writing to get the embeddings. Then from here to here I'm creating the connection to Weaviate. If you see, connect to Weaviate Cloud, cluster URL is Weaviate URL. Remember, this URL comes from environment variable that we have saved, okay? API key comes from environment variable that we have saved. And then if there is an existing collection, I want to delete that. I want to start a new collection, okay? And in that collection I have three properties: title, description and genre. For a movie, you can think of 3 columns in a table, okay? So a collection movies will get created, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert some data into that collection. So as you can see, my first title is Matrix movie, description is this, genre is science fiction. Title is Spirited Away, description is this, genre is animation. Title is Lord of the Rings, description is this, genre is fantasy. Title is Inception, description is this, genre is science fiction. So on and so forth. I have some data here, 6 data points basically. And I'm saying insert with vector. So client.collection.getCollection name. So I'm calling that embedding. So I'm using my own embedding. If you see here, I have my own embedding function here. And from that embedding function, I'm creating embedding and basically passing it to the database. So if I run this, what will happen is those 6 data points, right, that will get inserted into a collection called movie. Okay. So if I run this, you can see here it is running now, Python create collection. So there was a movie collection, it is deleting that, and then it is creating a new collection movie, and then imported and embedded 6 objects to movie. So if I go to that collection, basically, let me show you that. So that is in my Aman Weaviate, okay. And here you will have a new collection movie, not new basically, it was before also, but this is how it will look like: science fiction, the matrix, description, and the vector. Second one, fantasy, Lord of the Rings, description, and the vector. So whatever data I want to put, the data is here. One important thing to understand here is when the matching happens, right, this is the vector on which the matching will happen. So when user writes a query, that query will be matched to this vector. When I say query, you can think about embedding of that query will be matched against this vector to find the relevance. Okay, because this is our embedding vector. Now this is first part of the program done. So we have created connection. We have created connection, then we have created collection, and then push data to collection. These 3 things we have done. Now we go to the RAG part, RAG movie RAG. So as I told you, it's also very simple to understand. Same way the connection will get created, same way I'll go to the movie, then client needs to be there because without client we can't match. This is OpenAI embedding, so we will create embedding and then retrieve relevant movies. What we are going to do, we are going to match. And how we are going to match? movies.query.near vector. So this near vector function, right, it will match the nearest vector in movies collection. And once we have, we will get the top 3 movies or top 3 things as the output. Okay, and those top 3 things will get appended in the docs, and then docs is what we are going to get. And then build context. So if you remember, right, after matching, user query match in collection, get match and prepare context. So this is what we are doing here, build context block. So if nothing is there in docs, then no relevant docs. If something is there in the docs, then movie title, genre, description we will take. Okay, we will join everything, and then this is our context. This context we will pass to the LLM. So answer with RAG and answer without RAG. There are 2 variants of my function. Basically both are only little different, but you have to understand how these 2 are working. In answer with RAG, I am saying this is my docs. Okay, docs is nothing but what you are getting from the search. Context text is nothing but what you are getting from build block context from here. Okay, then take this context text and pass to the LLM. But here if you see the instruction, right, you are a movie assistant, you receive user question, answer the question using only the movie description in the context. If the answer is not in the context, say that you don't know. So the same behavior, if you see here what I was showing you in the beginning, right, if the answer is not there, say that I do not know. But in without RAG, I am saying ask the LLM the same question but without any database context. Useful for showing what changes when we use RAG. Okay, this is the comment, sorry. You are a movie assistant but you do not have access to any database. Answer based only on your general knowledge. So based on general knowledge, it has to answer, not based on any database. That is the difference between these 2 prompts. And then in user prompt we are giving the context, and this is normal chat GPT completion, and whatever comes as the response we are just printing it. Okay, and in the main we are basically asking the question and passing it to the next function. So if you see here, input, enter your question, q, and then answer with rag, we are passing it. Okay, so answer with rag, here we are passing it, the top three things will come as the output. Now the thing is, when this particular script runs, right? So for example, this script if I run, then you will see that tell me a good action movie. So this will only answer with rag, because in this script I showed you the main function, right? In the main function I am taking answer with rag, but when I am wrapping Streamlit in the Streamlit function, right, just for the demo purpose I have taken both the version, answer with rag and answer without rag, just to show you. So here if you see, right, answer without rag is also there. If you want to see, answer with rag is also there. So both the things are here. And one more time we can run the Streamlit app and get a feel of how it is working. So in my data, if you paid attention, right, in my data there is a fantasy movie. So let me go and ask about a fantasy movie. If I ask about a fantasy movie, suggest me, tell me about a fantasy movie, and let me say ask. Let this answer come, guys, but I want to show you my new channel, which is AI Bits by Aman, the shorts channel. Please go ahead and subscribe to that channel, guys, because I am creating content on that shorts videos. Okay, so shorts tutorials, you can learn about data science, AI and machine learning in AI Bits, actually, not AI notes. Okay, so here you can go, I'm creating regularly short videos, interesting videos which you should learn, and you will know more about data science, AI, machine learning, etc. So you can just go and subscribe to AI Bits by Aman. Okay, I'm regularly putting videos on this. So this is our rag. Tell me about a fantasy movie. Rag answer, a fantasy movie from the list is The Lord of the Rings, as expected, because that is what is here, Lord of the Rings. And compare with LLM answer only. Sure, one popular fantasy movie is Lord of the Rings, because the context get passed, but something which is not here. If we say, for example, comedy, we said, RAG system simply tells I don't know, because that is what it should say, and LLM only gives some answer because that is how it should behave. Now you have to tell me where you will use this and where you will use that, but I'm going to show you retrieved movie similarity. For example, Lord of the Rings, the similarity score is high, hence it comes on the top. And if you want to see the context that is going to the LLM, see here, LLM context and prompt. Context block passed to the LLM. So what is the context block? The match output that comes from the RAG. So if you go to our initial triangle, right, context block means what is getting passed in step 2. What is getting passed in step 2? User query plus context. So this is the context. Okay, and if you want to see the entire prompt that is getting passed, this is the entire prompt. You are a movie assistant, this is user message, user question, and then this is the context. So this is your entire context. All these things are printed just to show you how it is working, and I hope you got a very good idea of how a vector database is storing data, how the comparison is happening, and how the response is getting prepared in a RAG system. Never forget this triangle, this is very important, and never forget how the data is stored in VectorDB and how the comparison is happening. These are the critical things for RAG. Other things are just, more layers on top of this. So please give me a thumbs up guys if you like the content at Unfold Data Science. I'll see you all in the next video. Wherever you are, stay safe and take care.